Welcome back to Book Dive. Everybody ready for another deep dive,
Always love a good deep dive.
especially if you're on that morning commute.
Yeah,
You need a little bit of a boost.
exactly.
And if you like what you hear today, hit that like button and subscribe.
Yes.
It really helps us out. So today we are diving into Awaken the Giant Within.
Oh, a
By
classic.
Tony Robbins, I mean, talk about somebody who's really stood the test of time.
Yes, he has.
And a lot of self-help books, they're really feel good. But I think what I really appreciated about this book is like it really breaks down the mechanics of the mind,
Absolutely.
and how we can actually change our behaviors and really shape our lives.
Yeah, and that's what I appreciate about Tony Robbins too, is that he really does focus on like taking action, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not just about like feeling good or thinking positive thoughts. It's like, okay, so what are the actual like steps that you can take to change your life?
Yeah. And one of the first things that really stuck out to me was how much emphasis he puts on the power of decisions.
Yes.
You know, every decision we make, even like the seemingly small ones,
They have a ripple effect.
they have a ripple effect that really does impact our future.
And he breaks it down into these three decisions that we're constantly making,
Right. Yeah.
What should I focus on? What
Yeah.
does this mean? And what should I do?
Right. And he tells this funny story about this guy who relapses into smoking after like 2.5 years, and he blames Tony Robbins.
Oh my
He
God.
was like, I was programmed by you to quit, and I broke the program, and it's your fault.
Wow.
Yeah, he was putting the responsibility outside of himself.
Yeah, it sounds like he wasn't quite grasping like that whole personal responsibility piece.
Exactly. And so, but I thought it was really funny, but also it really highlighted that idea that like we are ultimately responsible for our choices.
Absolutely. You can try to blame external factors, but at the end of the day, we're the ones making the decisions.
Exactly. So, but how do we change, like, those ingrained behaviors that aren't serving us?
Right.
He talks about this concept called neuro-associative conditioning, or NAC.
NSE, yes. It's like a 6-step process for basically rewiring your brain.
It is. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really about understanding the link between like your neurology, your emotions, and your actions.
Uh-huh.
And it starts with this idea of creating leverage. So like connecting pain to the old behavior and pleasure to the new one.
It's like making it more painful to stay stuck than to actually change.
Exactly.
Here's this funny story about like this guy who's addicted to chocolate. And he's like, to interrupt this pattern, you have to eat chocolate for 9 days straight, like nothing but chocolate.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, talk about a way to interrupt a pattern and like shift your association with pleasure.
Yeah, you're definitely going to be over chocolate after that.
Exactly. So, but NSC isn't just about like stopping the old. It's about creating new, empowering alternatives and then reinforcing those patterns through repetition.
Right. So you break the old pattern, you create a new one, and then you condition that new pattern by repeating it over and over again.
You got it. And I'm curious too about this idea of beliefs shaping our reality.
Yes.
At first I thought this was a little woo-woo, but the more I read, I'm like, wow, this actually makes a lot of sense.
It's so true. Our beliefs act like filters for how we see the world, and they influence our actions and ultimately the outcomes that we experience.
It's like that example he gives of the raisin industry and how they rebranded themselves.
Oh, yeah.
They went from like being this boring old snack to being like,
Ah.
the California cool, like healthy snack.
Exactly. Just by changing the associations that people had, they totally transformed like the perception of raisins and people's behavior towards them.
It's pretty amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, if they can make raisins cool, imagine what we could do with our own beliefs.
I know, that's right. It's
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. But, it's important to be aware of those limiting
Right,
beliefs,
absolutely.
the ones that hold us back. And, Robbins really emphasizes the importance of adopting empowering beliefs that actually support our goals.
Yes, and he tells some really great stories to illustrate this point, like the story of Deming and Ford Motor Company.
Yeah.
Deming, he was a quality control expert, and he came in and he challenged this prevailing belief that higher quality meant higher costs.
Right.
And he showed that actually higher quality leads to lower costs over time.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
It's a really powerful example of how shifting beliefs about quality can completely revolutionize performance and lead to much greater success.
Yeah. And it reminds us that like sometimes our most deeply held beliefs can be the things that are actually preventing us from achieving what we want.
Exactly. It's so important to examine those beliefs and challenge the ones that aren't serving us, and then embrace those new beliefs that empower us to create the lives that we truly desire.
It's a constant process of growth and evolution.
That-
But speaking of growth,
Mhm.
another thing that I really appreciated about the book was his emphasis on values. Like those core principles that guide our decisions and shape our destinies.
Values are like our compass. They're what direct our lives. And Robbins talks about this concept of values hierarchies, like those things that we want to experience and those that we want to avoid.
Right. And I love that story you told about your employee Jolie and her Disneyland dilemma.
Oh, yeah.
She landed her dream job at Disneyland, but then she also had this opportunity to attend Robbins' certification program, which was like this massive opportunity for personal growth, but it meant leaving Disneyland.
It was a tough decision for her.
And she was torn.
Yeah, because her top values were personal growth and connection with loved ones, and they were kind of pulling her in opposite directions.
Right. So how did she resolve that?
Well, she had to get really clear about her values hierarchy, and once she did that, she was able to make a decision that brought her peace.
I love that story. It's a great example of how, like, sometimes the things that we think will bring us happiness can actually create conflict when they clash with our deeper values.
Exactly, and it's why it's so important to really understand and prioritize our values, because they're what guide us towards a life that's truly fulfilling. It really is, and it kind of leads us into this whole idea of the power of questions.
Oh, yeah. I love this part of the book,
Yeah.
Because he's saying that the questions that we habitually ask ourselves
Yeah.
actually shape our focus, our emotions.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It is.
The questions that you ask yourself, they create that.
Our actions and our results.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And he talks about how questions impact us in these like 3 key ways.
Okay.
They shift our focus and our feelings.
Right.
They force our brains to search for answers, and then they shape our internal dialogue, which like opens up new possibilities.
Yeah. And it gives this really cool personal example of how, like, asking empowering questions helped him shift his mindset after he found out that, like, a former associate had plagiarized his work.
Oh, wow.
Instead of dwelling in that anger and resentment, he asked himself, like, what do I respect about this guy? And it helped him, like, find some humor in the situation and move forward.
That's a really good example of like how consciously choosing your questions can interrupt those negative thought patterns and lead you to a more resourceful state.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's not just about changing our internal dialogue, though. It's about using questions to like gain new perspectives and unlock solutions.
Yeah. And he gives some great examples of this in the business world, like how Donald Peterson, the former president of Ford, used questions to, like, empower his employees and foster innovation.
Oh, yeah.
He was known for asking things like, what do you think? How can your job be improved?
Mm.
And when he asked designer Jack Telnack if he liked the cars he was designing, Telnack said, no, I don't, which led to the creation of the iconic Ford Taurus.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, it's a great example of how the right questions can spark creativity and lead to breakthroughs.
It really is sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just ask.
Yeah, so true. So speaking of powerful tools, let's move on to the concept of transformational vocabulary.
Okay, so this one might sound a little out there at first,
Right.
but stay with me.
I'm intrigued.
So Robbins suggests that changing the words we use to describe our experiences can actually shift our emotional intensity and create new possibilities.
So it's like literally changing the words.
It is, and it's because language has this profound influence on our internal representations and our emotional states. Words create filters through which we experience the world.
Okay.
And so by changing those filters, we can change our experience.
Like that example you gave about using the word fascinating to reframe your anger while you were stuck in traffic.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Remember?
Yeah. Yeah. So just by changing the label that you put on the emotion, you were able to completely shift your state.
Yeah, it's such a simple but surprisingly effective technique, and it ties in really nicely with the power of metaphors.
Okay.
Robbins talks about identifying and challenging limiting metaphors, those comparisons that kind of frame our experiences in a negative or disempowering way.
Okay. So instead of saying, I'm stuck in this traffic jam, it's
Right.
like, this is fascinating what's going on here.
Exactly. Yeah. And instead of using a metaphor like, I'm drowning in work,
Right.
you could say, I'm surfing the waves of opportunity.
Right. Or I'm in the flow.
Exactly. Yeah. And it really does make a difference because metaphors have this profound impact on our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions.
Yeah, I love that example you shared about your friend Maestro, who transformed his relationship with food by adopting the metaphor that his body was a temple.
Yeah.
And just by changing his internal representation, he was able to lose over 100 pounds.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is.
The way that we frame our experiences, it determines how we feel and ultimately what we do.
So we've got decisions, beliefs, values, questions, vocabulary, metaphors. Like this is a whole toolbox.
And it's like a whole toolkit for transformation?
It is.
Ooh.
But he doesn't stop there, right?
No, he does not.
He also dives into this idea of physical destiny and the importance of physical health and well-being.
Physical destiny, it's all about recognizing the connection between our physical health, our mental and emotional well-being, and just like our overall fulfillment in life.
Yeah, and I love how he distinguishes between health and fitness.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about the example of ultramarathon runner Stu Middleman,
Yes.
who ran 1,000 miles in 11 days without a single injury,
Incredible.
not even a blister. And he actually looked better at the end of the run than he did at the beginning.
Yeah, that's amazing. It highlights the potential of the human body when it's properly cared for.
Yeah, and he talks about the difference between aerobic and anaerobic exercise and the importance of building an aerobic base for long-term health and sustained energy.
So it's not just about pushing yourself to the limit. It's about finding that sustainable approach to exercise that nourishes your body and supports your overall well-being.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
But we're not just physical beings, we're also social creatures.
That's right.
And I appreciate how Robbins doesn't shy away from the often complex world of relationships.
Relationships are essential for human happiness and fulfillment, but they also come with their own unique set of challenges.
Exactly.
And Robbins emphasizes the importance of understanding not only our own values and rules in relationships, but also the values and rules of those that we care about.
Right. And of course, those can often clash,
They do.
leading to conflict.
Yeah. And, he gives some really great tips for navigating those conflicts, like using pattern interrupts.
What's a pattern interrupt?
Well, it's like, those humorous or unexpected actions that can kind of break the tension and shift the energy of a situation.
Okay, so if you're in an argument with your partner and you just start singing a silly song.
Exactly. Or, you could tell a joke, or you could even just change the subject.
Right.
It's about finding ways to communicate effectively and respectfully, even when emotions are running high.
Right. I like that. And then he also talks about using softeners.
Yes, softeners.
What are those?
Softeners are phrases that kind of acknowledge our own quirks and idiosyncrasies,
Okay.
to take the edge off of potentially sensitive topics.
So for example.
So, you could say something like, I know I can be a bit of a control freak sometimes,
Well,
but
that's
I'm
right.
really working on it.
I see.
Or you could say, I tend to get really passionate about things, so...
I might be overreacting a little.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about just being a little bit more self-aware and a little bit more humble in your communication.
Right. So it's not about avoiding conflict altogether, but it's about finding ways to navigate it constructively.
Yeah, and ultimately strengthen the relationship in the process.
Yeah. I like that. But what about money? That's another biggie
Oh, yes,
that everyone's always talking about.
Yeah, well, Robbins tackles this whole idea of financial destiny, and he says that wealth is created through distribution and adding value.
So it's not about hoarding resources. It's about finding ways to create and share value.
Exactly, and ultimately enriching the lives of others.
Yeah, and I love the example he gives of Paul Pilzer, the economist, who debunked the myth of resource scarcity.
Oh, yes, Paul Pilzer.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
He is, and he showed how technology is constantly creating new resources and opportunities.
Right.
His prediction about oil reserves.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing. Back in the 70s, everyone was convinced we were running out of oil.
Right.
But then by the 80s, thanks to advancements in technology, we had more oil than ever before.
Exactly. It just shows you how our beliefs about scarcity can be totally off base.
They can be completely wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Robbins emphasizes the importance of aligning our financial goals with our values, and finding joy and contributing to causes that we care about.
So it's not just about making money, it's about making a difference.
Exactly. And ultimately, that's what Awaken the Giant Within is all about.
What's that?
It's about using the power within us to create a life of meaning, purpose, and fulfillment.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's he's saying we all have this potential to be entrepreneurs of our own lives.
Exactly. We have the power to create the life that we want.
And one thing that really resonated with me was his emphasis on CNI.
CNI, yes. Constant and never-ending improvement.
Constant and never-ending improvement.
Such a powerful concept.
It's about embracing that journey of personal growth. Always striving to learn, evolve, become better versions of ourselves.
It's not about reaching some finish line.
Right.
It's about that continuous journey of growth.
Yeah, and he doesn't just stop at personal growth.
No.
He also talks about the importance of contribution. Using our unique talents and passions to make a positive impact on the world around us.
Like he says, the secret to living is giving.
It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he walks the walk too.
He does.
His Anthony Robbins Foundation is all about empowering individuals and communities globally.
It's inspiring to see someone who's achieved so much use their success to lift others up.
It really is. It reminds us that, like, we all have the capacity to make a difference,
Yeah.
regardless of our circumstances.
Absolutely.
And one thing I really appreciate about his work is that he doesn't shy away from challenges.
No, he doesn't.
He acknowledges them,
He does.
but then he also empowers us to find solutions and create the lives that we want.
He's all about taking action, right? Like, it's not just about wishing things were different, but actually doing something to make them different.
Yeah, and he gives us so many tools, to do that.
Yeah.
One that really stood out to me was the 10-day mental challenge.
Ah, yes.
Can you imagine, like, eliminating all negative thoughts and emotions for 10 straight days?
It sounds like a really difficult challenge,
It does.
but it's a powerful exercise in self-discipline and awareness, because it forces you to pay attention to your internal dialogue and consciously choose more empowering thoughts and emotions.
Yeah, it's amazing how much our external reality can shift when we change our internal state.
It really is. It's like a mental detox.
It is. And speaking of detox, yeah, he also talks about the importance of, like, regularly evaluating our beliefs, values, and rules.
Yes. Are they still serving us or are they holding us back?
Right. It's like, updating your phone's software.
I love that analogy.
Sometimes those old beliefs are like outdated apps.
They just don't function as well anymore.
You need like a new operating system
We need to upgrade it.
to reach our full potential.
I love that.
So it's like life is a constant journey of learning and evolution, and we have the power to choose how we experience that journey.
We do.
We can let our past dictate our future, or we can break free from that and create a life that's truly extraordinary.
And that choice is available to us in every single moment.
It is.
Like Tony says, the only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today.
That's a good one.
So let's choose to believe in ourselves, embrace that power within us, and create a future that is full of joy, purpose, and fulfillment.
All right, book divers. So there you have it. Our deep dive into Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins.
A classic.
A classic. And if this deep dive resonated with you, be sure to check out the affiliate link in the description.
Yeah.
You can grab your own copy of the book.
And let us know what you think.
Yes. What were some of your aha moments
What changes are you inspired to make?
in your own life?
Yeah.
Share your insights in the comments below.
Yes, we love hearing from you.
We do. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep those inner giants awakened.
Bye, everybody.